The cell that breathed fear. The cell wasn't just cold, it was designed to be. Every angle, every material, even the recycled air whispered one purpose: break the prisoner. Sergeant Elias Varn sat in the center of the metallic room, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. The walls pulsed faintly with blue lines, emitting a low-frequency hum that induced anxiety in most species. Not in him. High above, behind a transparent hexagonal panel, Inquisitor Rhel-Za watched with narrowed, crimson eyes. She adjusted the dials on her observation module, increasing the concentration of fear pheromones pumped into the chamber. The human didn't even blink. His heart rate remained steady. No tremble in his limbs. No sweat. No panic. He was wrong. Most captives broke within an hour. The Zereth Dominion had mastered the art of emotional decomposition. They didn't need crude torture. They knew which neural chemicals to flood, which frequencies triggered primal terror. Yet the human sat cross-legged on the cold floor, as if meditating. She tapped the console and summoned a memory feed. The brief footage showed Elias during his capture, fighting 6 Dominion guards after his squad had fallen. His face hadn't changed then, either. Focused. Calm. Not fearless, but something beyond fear. She entered the cell. Her boots clicked softly against the alloy flooring. Elias didn't look up. Human, she began, voice smooth like velvet draped over blades. You are isolated, surrounded, drugged, watched. Your people don't know where you are. They won't come for you. He opened one eye, and that single syllable carried no defiance, no sarcasm, just curiosity. Rhel-Za stepped closer, irritated at his indifference. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly, he said, slowly standing. Even standing, he didn't tower over her, but something in his posture made her feel smaller. I'm in a Dominion cell. My team's dead. You're trying to get something out of me, information, fear, or maybe just obedience. But I've seen what happens to people who give you those. I'm not interested. You should be afraid, she said, stepping forward, voice dropping to a hiss. We have dismantled species stronger than yours. Civilizations burned because they dared oppose us. You're a mammal from a backwater planet. We've evolved past your kind. So why aren't you afraid? His reply came so softly it felt like a chill crawling up her spine. Because I've already died once. Everything after is just rehearsal. Rhel-Za blinked. The silence stretched. The lights above flickered slightly. Whether from power fluctuation or coincidence, she didn't know. But for the first time in decades, she felt her composure falter. You speak in riddles, she snapped, masking her unease. No riddle, Elias said. I died the moment I was captured. The me you think you're interrogating? He doesn't exist anymore. You're not facing a man trying to survive. You're facing something that already accepted death and made peace with it. You'll break, she said, almost to herself. I don't need to win, Elias replied, walking slowly around her, inspecting the room. I just need to hold long enough. For what? A smirk. You'll see. Rhel-Za's fist clenched, but she resisted the urge to strike. That was not the Dominion way. Violence was for the battlefield. This was supposed to be clinical, methodical, but she'd never interrogated a species like this before. She turned on her heel and strode out. Back in the control chamber, she pulled up his vitals again. No spikes, no tremors. The Dominion's psychological warfare tech was useless on him. He wasn't resisting the fear systems. He was immune. Commander Juravex's voice echoed through the comm line. Progress, Inquisitor? Rhel-Za hesitated. He's not responding as expected. No indicators of stress or submission. A pause. Then he is dangerous. She nodded to herself. Yes, extremely. Break him, Juravex ordered, or dispose of him. We cannot allow the myth of human resilience to spread. As the comm line closed, Rhel-Za stared once more at the cell. She had looked into many prisoners' eyes. She had seen terror, defiance, desperation. But Elias Varn? He looked at her like he already knew how this would end. And that, more than anything, chilled her blood. The anatomy of a mind. Inquisitor Rhel-Za stood in the observation deck, her arms folded tightly across her chest. The image of Elias Varn glowed on the translucent screen before her, his vitals flatlined in perfect stability. It had been 3 standard days since their last conversation, and the human hadn't cracked. He hadn't even flinched. She had interrogated warlords, assassins, high priests from shattered planets. All of them had yielded, some within hours, others after drawn-out sessions. But the human? He sat in the corner of his cell like it was a monastery. She activated the neural stimulation chamber. Invisible pulses rippled through the air inside his cell, waves of synthetic hallucination, tuned precisely to match human limbic response. For others, it would induce screaming terror, guilt, nightmares, sometimes even madness. Elias blinked twice, leaned back against the wall, and shut his eyes. His breathing slowed. "He's meditating," muttered the technician beside her, puzzled. "No," Rhel-Za said softly. "He's adapting." She dismissed the technician and watched him alone. Inside the cell, Elias Varn drifted through images not of his choosing. His parents, his fallen squad mates, a burning earth. But these were tricks, echoes laced with synthetic emotion. The Dominion had crafted them to mimic trauma. Yet Elias had been trained for this back on Earth. Neural resistance, conditioning, dream control, emotional disassociation. He remembered his instructor's voice from the Black Ops program. "You must become an ocean. You feel it all, but you do not react. Fear is the current. You are the depth beneath it." He smiled faintly. It was working. Rhel-Za stepped into the chamber again, this time alone, no guards, no theatrics. "You're immune to our fear machines," she said, circling him slowly. "No," Elias said. "I feel everything. I just don't serve it." "You should," she said sharply. "Fear is a survival instinct. It defines rationality. For humans, fear is a motivator. But it doesn't own us. That's what you don't understand. Then help me understand." He opened his eyes. "I watched a man crawl through fire with no legs to carry his wounded friend. I've seen mothers shield their children with their own bodies as orbital rounds fell. You think your simulations frighten me? You're late. We've already lived worse." Rhel-Za was silent. There was no bravado in his voice, no boasting, just truth, a calm, terrifying truth. "You said I should fear extinction," Elias continued. "But extinction is only frightening to species who've never stood on the edge." She looked at him, perplexed. "And humans have?" He met her gaze. "We sharpened our fear against every terror this galaxy could throw at us. Then we started looking for bigger blades." The words lodged deep in her thoughts. Something cracked inside her, a sliver of doubt in her belief of Zerith's superiority. She turned, pacing. "I've studied your kind. You're emotional, violent, inconsistent. That's our strength," Elias said. "We can endure chaos because we are chaos. We don't break the way you expect. We don't submit. We evolve. And what exactly are you evolving into?" He smiled, not with his mouth but with his eyes. "Something that keeps you up at night." Later, Rhel-Za stood before Commander Juravex's hologram. "He's different, not just strong, foundationally alien in psychology." "Your tone concerns me," the commander growled. "You sound impressed." "I am disturbed," she admitted. "He's not resisting our tools. He's operating through them, adapting faster than expected. Then accelerate his breakdown. Unleash Sector 9 protocol." Rhel-Za hesitated. "That will destroy his mind." "Good," Juravex said coldly. "Better broken than studied. The myth of human resistance must be buried." The comm shut off. She looked down at the screen again. Elias Varn was calmly doing push-ups in his cell, muscles rippling under restraint. No sound, no fear, not even anticipation, just preparation. And for the first time in her life, Rhel-Za asked herself a question she had never dared ask before. What if the stories about humans aren't myths? What if they're warnings? The monster in the mirror. Rhel-Za hadn't slept in 2 cycles. She paced the length of the observation chamber like a predator unsure of its own territory. Something had shifted, not in the prisoner, but in herself. She was beginning to feel watched. By him, by Elias Varn. She stood in front of the observation pane once more. The human sat against the wall, eyes closed, breathing deep. But she felt it, his awareness pressed against the glass like a silent threat. Not in defiance, but in control. The Dominion had spent centuries perfecting domination. Their interrogators were surgeons of the mind. Their subjects bent like reeds in a storm. But this man, no, this thing was different. He wasn't resisting fear. He had harnessed it. "Bring in the shock unit," she ordered. 2 Zereth guards entered Elias's cell moments later. Clad in full armor, they carried electro staves tuned to human neural frequencies. The first guard stepped forward. "Prisoner, stand." Elias didn't move. The second jabbed the staff into his ribs. The current flared. Elias grunted, his body spasming briefly. But then he stood. Not staggered. Not cowering. Just rising. One swift movement. A pivot. A strike. The first guard collapsed, his knees shattered, staff clattering to the floor. The second raised his weapon, but Elias had already moved. Elbow. Throat. Silence. In 5 seconds, 2 fully trained Dominion enforcers lay unconscious at his feet. Rhel-Za stormed into the chamber as the alarms began to wail. Guards surrounded the room, but Elias simply sat back down as if nothing had happened. Rhel-Za entered alone. "You were provoked," she said flatly. "No," Elias replied. "I was reminding you. I let you keep me here. You killed them. They're breathing. You can check." She did. He was right. You had a chance to escape. He looked at her calmly. "And go where?" "The message is more important than the action." She narrowed her eyes. "What message?" Elias stood slowly, his movements deliberate, controlled. "That your walls don't protect you. That your power means nothing when the mind won't yield. That your fear engines are broken when used against what created them." "You think you invented fear?" she snapped. "No," Elias said. "We tamed it and turned it into a weapon." Later, in her private quarters, Rhel-Za stood before her mirror. She stared into her own eyes, recalling Elias's calm expression, his deadly control. Her hands trembled, just slightly. It was irrational. She was the Dominion's most decorated inquisitor. But that man, no, that species, had undone her certainty. She activated the neuropulse generator on herself. The standard training procedure. Just a minor dose. A fragment of what Elias had endured. A scream escaped her lips before she could stop it. Shaking, she shut the machine down and collapsed to the floor. It hadn't even been 10 seconds. How had he endured hours? Days? How had he stared into the abyss and smiled back? She returned to his cell the next cycle. This time, there were no guards. No weapons. Just the two of them. She studied him from across the room. "Tell me the truth," she said quietly. "What are you really?" He tilted his head. "You already know. I need to hear it." He stepped forward, and though she didn't move, every fiber in her body screamed at her to retreat. "I'm human," he said softly. "And what you fear isn't me." "Then what?" "The fact that there are millions more like me. That fear to us is not a prison. It's a forge." She swallowed. Her mind raced. What kind of species saw fear as fuel? Then he added, "And the ones you should really worry about aren't as nice as I am." The chill ran so deep through her body, she almost collapsed again. She had come to study a prisoner. Instead, she had awakened a predator. The response echoes. The cell was no longer a prison. It was a beacon. Rhel-Za stood in the dimly lit corridor, staring at the reinforced door that separated her from Elias Varn. No guards remained posted. None dared. They whispered of shadows behind his eyes, of a man who stared down the fear protocols as if they were games. The stories had started to spread, quietly at first, between technicians and junior officers. The unbreakable human. The man who didn't scream. The man who smiled under the Dominion's worst. And now, something else had begun. Other prisoners, non-humans from worlds the Zereth had conquered, had heard the rumors. In interrogation halls, defiance sparked where there had only been silence. In the lower sectors, guards spoke in hushed tones of power outages and strange fluctuations near the human cell. Something was building. Something dangerous. Commander Juravex's hologram blazed to life before her. "You failed, Inquisitor," he growled. "The human's presence is undermining morale." "In him now." Rhel-Za's throat tightened. "He's not just a soldier, Commander. He's a psychological weapon. I don't need your fascination. I need results. She lowered her gaze. Understood. The hologram faded, and she remained motionless. She didn't move because something had changed in her, not just as an interrogator, but as a Zerith. She was afraid. Not of death. Not of war. Of him. She entered the cell for the final time. Elias stood as she approached, calm as ever, like he'd been expecting her. Your commander gave the order, she said. I'm supposed to kill you. He nodded once. I assumed as much. Rhel-Za lifted a pulse weapon from her side. It hummed, ready. He didn't flinch. She stared at him. I don't understand. Even now, no fear. He stepped forward, voice low. You're still asking the wrong question. Then what's the right one? Elias leaned in, his breath warm, his words a whisper made of thunder. What happens when they come for me? The silence between them cracked like glass. And then the facility shook. Red lights pulsed. Sirens wailed. A voice barked over the intercom in broken, panicked Zerith. Unidentified vessels have breached orbit. Cloaked signatures. Human design. Boarding parties incoming. Multiple sectors compromised. We've lost control of levels 3 through 6. They're already inside. Rhel-Za's eyes widened. No, that's impossible. Elias simply smiled. I told you. I just needed to hold long enough. The door to the cell burst open. Human Marines flooded in, black-armored, silent, efficient. They swept the room in seconds, weapons aimed but steady. Sergeant Varn, the lead soldier, said, Extraction ready. Elias turned back to Rhel-Za one last time. She stared at him, every inch of her trembling, weapon lowered. Are all you like this? She asked, her voice nearly a whisper. He walked past her, paused, and looked over his shoulder. Only the nice ones. Then he was gone, swallowed by shadows and smoke. Hours later, the facility lay in ruins. Dominion systems crashed. Prisoners liberated. Guards fled or dead. The human ships vanished as quickly as they came, leaving only rumors in their wake. Inquisitor Rhel-Za sat alone in the empty cell, staring at the wall where Elias Varn had once sat. Not a single tool had worked. Not one machine had broken him, because he had never come to survive. He had come to infect, to plant terror, not through pain, but through truth. And now that truth had spread beyond the walls of the cell, across the station, across the sector, and across the stars,